Coming up on today's episode of No Place Like Home.
Kind of changing my worldview and the lens that I view everything through, in particular when it comes to men. The reason I say it's a difficult conversation is because I feel so completely different and I see things so completely differently than I did 10 years ago or even 7 years ago.
Less than that, yeah.
7 years ago is about when it started. But then it was like these little small kind of ideas popping into my head. Sometimes they were major shifts, but other times it was like I would watch a show and it would be like, oh, that's interesting. I'd never thought about that before. And so it really was such a major transformation that had so many pieces. It's changed everything for me. My faith in God is deeper. My faith in Mike is deeper. My love for Mike is greater. My appreciation and love for the men in our community is greater. And my love for myself and my role, I feel like a queen. I feel so richly blessed. Hey everybody, welcome back to No Place Like Home, a North and South podcast where we talk about the magic and power of homemaking. I'm Megan. This is Mike.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my goodness. We've been married for almost 26 years at the end of this month.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Better go buy something.
We have 9 kids, and we work from home, and we do school at home, and we love being home together as a family.
And we record this podcast from home, too.
Yes, we do. So sometimes you hear the garage door opening or kids
Children
talking.
fighting in the background,
No.
tearing each other apart, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we have a good time.
Yeah.
So welcome back, Mike.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Megan. So, Megan, we always talk about current events for just a moment at the beginning here. What's happening with the family? Anything exciting?
It was Easter weekend, which was really nice.
Yeah.
We have extended family in the area, and so they came over and shared dinner with us, and we had a really chubby, beautiful baby here,
right.
which was the hit of the night.
Our grandniece.
Yes, our
Is that-
grandniece.
can we
That's
call-
crazy.
Kind of I think it's our grandniece once removed or niece once removed or
Mike's
something like
brother and his wife's granddaughter was here.
Yes.
And Esther moved back home last week. So that's really fun. She's here just for a few months to kind of save up because she's moving across the country and was going to just go straight from working in Virginia where she was living, but wanted to have some extra cash because moving's expensive. And we're like, well, come
Turns
on home.
out.
And that's one of the things we
talked about that a little bit on
Yeah.
the last podcast, just shortly.
Yeah, to let, your kids, how like it used to be in our generation, you had failed as a parent if your kids didn't move out right at 18 and never come back.
Right.
Yeah, and we have a total open door policy, and we love it when they can come back and like do stuff like this, save money, so that they're not being forced to make decisions during this time of life where you don't have a lot of money because of money. So we want them to be able to, get more training or save money or build something like a business or things along those lines and provide a place for them to live for free room and board. So fun to have her home. Now, probably of all the kids, she gets the least free room and board because already she's given haircuts.
You're right.
Yeah.
She does know how to do that. So
Yeah,
that
she
helps.
went to Aveda to become a cosmetologist or a hairdresser. And she's been doing that up in Virginia as well as some other things. But
and she does the best job.
She's
for the
great at
boys.
what she does. And so I think almost the first day she was home, she was already cutting people's
Yeah,
hair.
she was. The boys are like, "Hey, Esther, can I get a haircut?"
And it's like kind of like when she's here, like, maybe I could use a little trim.
Yeah.
Like constant,
careful.
like some wealthy
Take
man
too
who
much
gets
off.
his hair cut every week or something. No, so it's great to have her. And we really haven't had her living at home for years.
It's been a long
Because
time.
she left at 19 and now she's 22. So
Man,
it's been
crazy.
3 years since she lived at home. So that's happy.
Yeah.
And it's spring and beautiful. We went on a little hike today with Esther and even Jude. And because of the kind of weather where you're like, if I don't get out in this, I'm a fool.
You're a total fool.
Because it won't last.
Fool.
So we went for a little hike. And
I know, it's going to get hot and
so
gross.
beautiful. We probably have another 6 to 8 weeks of incredible weather. So
Yeah.
we got to get out there.
So we could also mention that, and this doesn't really have any bearing on what you were just saying. Whoops.
My necklace just fell apart.
What? These necklace things are the worst. Okay, so got Megan's necklace fixed.
Yes.
One thing I thought I'd mention in case people are new to the channel, we have 9 children, like we said. 4 of them are biological, 5 are adopted. The youngest is 13. The oldest is 20.
Almost 25. Almost 25.
24. He's somewhere in there. So just so you understand like the dynamics here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. So Megan,
And also I thought you were going to mention is that we have a
I didn't
newsletter.
know. Oh, you're right.
We have a new
That's
newsletter.
a current event.
Where Mike has been putting this together, and then he says, "Hey, Megan, would you like to share what you've been thinking about lately?" And he sits me down, and I write, "Here's what's on my mind the last few days." And I did one today.
Yeah, it goes out every Wednesday.
So if you want to hop on our newsletter, go ahead and...
Yeah, so we'll put a link in the description of either the video or the podcast, depending on how you're consuming this content. You go there, subscribe to it. It's a weekly email. It gives you, like we said, some of Megan's thoughts, some of our current events with the family, and also our recent postings as far as videos, that sort of thing goes.
And that's definitely part of why we're doing it, because podcasts are normal. So if you follow a podcast and a new one comes out, you see it. But YouTube is weird. It used to be like this, but you could follow a channel and not hear about their new videos. It'll just decide like, I'm not going to tell you about that one. And so we have people tell us that all the time, and we've been like, how do we make it so that people hear about new videos that they want to watch? And so now we're just going to send it in an email each week. So say, hey, here's our newest 2 videos, because we usually do about 2 these days.
Typically.
Yeah, so if you want to just subscribe for that, just follow that description like Mike said, and the bonus is you get to, hear from us.
Wow.
Maybe a little Easter egg of a photo that we, because we never post on any other social media, so.
At least not like family stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Not that much.
No.
Anyhow, so go subscribe to that.
Yeah. Anyways, today's topic, as you know, is kind of a big one, so I'm a little subdued. I'm a little nervous. Yeah.
This can be a little bit controversial. Yes. Are we wading into controversial territory, Megan?
Yes, we are. But
maybe we should say why you wanted to talk about it and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, last week I kind of mentioned it in the podcast, and people did. I said at the very end, what I really should talk about, but I've been terrified to talk about, is how my feelings for men have changed and how much happier I've become because of that. And which is kind of a weird thing to say, I guess. But I'm like, I said it right at the end. So I'm like, who's listening to the end anyways, right?
3 people were, it turns out, because they're the ones who commented on it.
Yeah, and said, hey, we do want to hear about that. And so I figured, all right, let's do it. I have been having this conversation in my head for years.
Megan has lots of conversations in her head.
I do. Well, and one of the conversations, one of the structures of the conversations I have in my head is, what would I go back and tell my former self? Like if I could tell her anything that would make her life better, that's usually the premise. What would I tell her? One of the things I would tell her is, for years and years and years. In fact, we watched a video last night from about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's true.
And I was so much heavier than I am now. I was, I don't know, probably 40 pounds heavier than I am now. But the sad thing is I was working so hard to be healthy, and I couldn't unlock why it wasn't working. And I was trying so many different things. So that's one of the things I would go back and tell her, because I do feel like I've figured a lot of that out. And if you would like to hear about that, maybe I should do a podcast. I know that I get asked that question, like, how are you staying trim, or how do you eat and while feeding your family and all of those things. So I would love to do that, because I have that conversation with myself in my head.
Maybe that should be the next one.
Okay.
Is that one? That's a good topic.
Okay. So I'll do that next time.
Because when it comes down to it, the reason we do this podcast, like we talked about, is about homemaking. And I think part of the home being a positive and happy place for everyone to be in is that I think mom and dad need to be healthy.
And happy.
Yeah. And so I think diet goes into that, like you're talking about. And then what we're going to talk about today goes into kind of your inner sort of peace and comfort with your role in the home. So
yeah, I think that's part of it. And so the other conversation I would have, but it's a difficult conversation, is kind of changing my worldview and the lens that I view everything through, in particular when it comes to men.
Right.
And the reason I say it's a difficult conversation is because I feel so completely different, and I see things so completely differently than I did 10 years ago, or even 7 years ago.
Less than that, yeah.
7 years ago is about when it started. But then it was like these little small kind of ideas popping into my head. Sometimes they were major shifts, but other times it was like I would watch a show and it would be like, oh, that's interesting. I'd never thought about that before. And so it really was such a major transformation that had so many pieces that sometimes I'm like, can I even go back to my former self? Would she even have a place for it? Could I explain this to her, or would she be like, what are you talking about? And so that is why I've had this conversation many, many times, trying to figure out how I would share it. And also, I don't think that where I was at that time, 10 years ago or 8 years ago, 7 years ago, is actually that far off from where a lot of women are, because I still, I go to church every Sunday, interact with a lot of women there. I go to an actual women's organization at church called the Relief Society, and we are all very open, and I have friends that are women, and we talk, and I know that a lot of the things that I was feeling and struggling with and really kind of just coming up against all the time are pretty common. But you don't want to be like, excuse me, I want to share with the class today how I learned to love men, because it's a long conversation. Everybody would be like, what are we?
I said that in my class the other day.
What are we talking about? But let's just kind of go back a little bit on me, because though I think it's common, I know that not everybody is here, but I definitely think that it started very early for me in my perception of men.
What started early for you?
My perception, the negative perception I had for men. Thank you.
Okay.
I did tell Mike, I'm pretty nervous, and this is a big conversation for me, so you're going to have to lead the witness a little bit here.
I'm the man here. I'll keep you calm. It's okay.
From my teen years especially, felt that, the water we swim in is definitely not super pro man.
Right.
As a culture. And that was true in the 80s and 90s. It's not as bad as it is now, but it was true then. And so the music I was listening to and movies and things were definitely peppered with that then. But also me in particular, I've always been very outspoken and very opinionated.
What? No.
And I was a tomboy growing up, and I was always trying to keep up with my brothers. I have 4 brothers, and prove that I had what it took, and wanted to be respected and all of those things. And so as a teenager, I definitely got pulled into a lot of ideas that led me to feel angry with men.
Okay, yeah.
I read novels like The Good Earth by Pearl Buck, and, I Know Where the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, which were stories...
Is it Maya Angelou?
Yeah, maybe.
Have I been saying it wrong, or are you saying it wrong?
I don't know, but we've got to get to the bottom of this, because we're
we'll
saying
figure this
it all
out.
the time.
Okay, I'll look it up before the end of the podcast here.
Now, both of those are tragic stories. One is an autobiography, Maya Angelou's, and one is Pearl S. Buck's is not. But these ideas of women who are just treated with such violence. And
by the men in their lives.
By the men in their lives.
Yeah.
And I was so hurt on their behalf, and started to see men as a threat to women and see them as an impediment to our growth. And started to also, I think one of the things that I did is I started to create a very flat image of men, which is funny because I had so many friends that were boys.
Right.
Like some of my closest friends in my teen years were boys that were great guys.
Yeah.
Funny, super kind all the time, respectful, saw me as an equal,
Right.
I met you at 18. Mike and I met at 18 and started dating. And you were always, I think, I couldn't stop talking, sharing my opinions with you constantly. And
Some things never change.
Yeah, and you liked me.
No, I did. I do, actually.
Yeah. I mean, that didn't turn you off,
No,
But
no.
my philosophies were that men were only interested in one thing, and that was women's bodies and taking advantage of us, that they weren't safe, that they didn't respect us. And so I had a lot of feelings like that, but I was holding them simultaneously while I had this amazing supportive husband, all these amazing friends, amazing brothers, and a dad. And that's kind of the funny part. I don't know how I did that, but I did. I held both of those simultaneously in my life.
And I'm going to guess you're not alone in that experience with a lot of women who are kind of having these
Yeah,
thoughts
I
and
watched The
feelings.
Color Purple. There's so many narratives about women who are hurt by men in their lives. And so those are based in so many true experiences. I just think it's interesting that I didn't have any of those experiences,
Right.
but I was still very, very burdened. And instead of saying, okay, there are bad men out there and they hurt women, I said men in general are bad. I just happen to know a few that are great.
Right. The good. Maybe
I know
the
there's
good
some
ones.
good ones.
Right.
But I have to keep them in check.
Yeah.
Well, I have to make sure that they understand
And they get
that they respect me.
Yeah. Yeah. That was true. You
Yeah.
kind of had that a little bit of a chip on your shoulder
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, and that went. It's funny. It went into so many aspects of my life simultaneously while I'm raising boys, and I'm not, teaching them. I'm not teaching them negative things about themselves. So it was like a mess. I don't want to flatten my experience into some caricature of me, but it was always there. It was always a part of my experience, and it colored things, and it would kind of come and go.
Yeah, that's true.
In the level of hurt and the level of frustration. Maybe we would watch a documentary. I remember watching a documentary 12, 13 years ago about essentially the takeaway from the documentary is men are the worst and women are the best. And if we could just get them out of the way, we could heal the world.
Right. Well, because one of the main parts of this documentary was this community of women who had essentially pushed out all the men.
Yes, in this
and they were
village.
I think it was and they were just talking about how much better life was without men.
Everything was working better without men.
Because they were the ones who were drinking and causing all the problems, and so they anyways, that was a big part of that documentary.
Yeah, that was called Half the Sky. I was dancing around it, but Half the Sky. And I think we got the book too. And then I was reading books, that book that everybody read, 10 to 15 years ago about the woman in Thailand who was sold into slavery. Anyways, so, my hurt would be intense for a while. And all simultaneously, once again, with knowing so many great men.
Right.
But coloring everything and everything in my life through that lens. Now, it started to intensify, I would say probably in the teens, 2000 teens. That documentary didn't help. I just believed. There was one line in it that I would repeat in conversations with others and all of the time. Not all of the time, but when it came up, that was if you give money to men, they spend it on women and booze, prostitutes.
Right.
And if you give money to women, they spend it on milk and education for their children.
Right.
And that was my definition of men and women almost.
Right. That got in there.
Yeah, which was really heavy. And so as that started to continue to progress until about 2019.
Yeah.
I came to the point where everything hurt in this section of my life. In any time I thought about anything along these lines, what it had to do with women and men. So now the entire history of the world hurt. The entire history of the world was painful and bad for women. Things at church started to hurt. Or I guess that it started years before, but it started to hurt a lot and didn't make as much sense to me. Maybe not just the structure of our church, with the Christian faith and men leading the church, but even just the scriptures themselves, I was counting genders in the stories I was reading and equal playtime sort of thing, in Bible stories.
Seeing an inequality there.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So it was a really hard place to be, and I was very burdened by it. So that's a quick overview of where I came from.
So you were pretty deep into those trenches. You were really feeling that.
How do you think? I don't know. It's hard. Looking back, it seems like it was a major shift, but at the same time, I wasn't. I don't know. It's hard when you change so much to remember what it was like before. What was your perception at the time?
Well, I wouldn't. The thing is, you weren't hostile toward men outright, and you weren't hostile toward me. But there was hurt there.
Yeah, there was hurt.
I remember us talking about it, and you would be like, "Oh, why are so many men so bad, and why does it have to be this way, and why are all the men in charge?" Or at church, you look at the org chart essentially, and it's men, and there was a lot of hurt there. Now, what did happen, which was interesting, was when you were really at the sort of the.
Oh, you're gonna go for it, huh?
Well, just gonna say at the highest point of this, our relationship did suffer. We did not at the time put those dots together.
No, I don't think so.
However, we were having some relationship struggles.
I don't think we were admitting to ourselves how much it had eroded. I don't know if we knew that's what it was, but I don't think we even admitted that we weren't doing great.
Yeah.
Until looking back, you can finally say I think that was a rough period
couple years.
Yeah, but in particular, it was a rough summer.
Yeah, it was one summer that was pretty, difficult for us.
Where we just didn't feel as close.
Yeah.
And I think it was because what I didn't realize was all of that focusing on women and women's struggles was kind of a focus on self and self-power.
Okay.
And why, because it's reflecting on the power of women and in particular myself, and it's hurt. And so it's a thinking of it's always reflecting on my feelings and the justification for them, and like, how do they heal? How do I work through them? And that's not good for any relationship. It means that I'm no longer thinking about, well, what does Mike need right now?
Right.
Like, because I'm so burdened. Like, I mean, that's true if I, during my cancer journey, it was
Well,
about me,
but
right?
okay,
Yeah, but I mean, that's true. That happens
understandable.
with couples. But when it was just about that, I think I didn't even realize it was happening.
Yeah.
And so we just didn't feel as close.
I was going to say, it created some distance.
Yeah.
That, again, was hard to articulate.
I don't even think we realized
but we were having there was more tension there.
Yeah.
And sort of a lack of sort of warmth.
But I don't think we would have even said it. I think if people would have asked us, we would have said, we're super happy.
I know, but you look back and we had some kind of tense conversations and disagreements. Some of that stuff that just wasn't typical for us, but it was happening.
Yeah. I think it was one summer in particular where it kind of came to a head, but that was my hardest. But it was also the summer where it all broke.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and this is what's going to happen. You're either going to kind of figure it out, or it's going to break in another direction, which is not good.
Yeah. Well, I kind of realized I came to a place where it's like, I came to a crossroads.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I got to figure this out, because I'm starting to feel like incongruence with my previous worldview, with my faith, with all of these things that I kind of held as true. These two things can't both simultaneously be true.
Yeah.
The entire history of the world can't be terrible for women and God be loving.
Right. Yeah.
And just. And man, we are just going for it, by the way. This makes me really nervous.
No, we're fine.
So that's where I kind of came. I had over here this belief in family, this belief in marriage, this belief in God, Jesus Christ, and then this hurt. And they had been going along for a long time, but then they came to this place where it was like, I don't think I can hold both of these anymore.
They don't mix very well, or at all.
Like they had both flowered, and they can't. It's incongruent, actually, when you follow them out. Thankfully, I knew that my faith was, it was like, I know that this is true. I know that we have a loving God. I know that families are good. I know that marriage is good. So I might need to take a look at this.
Yeah, maybe this isn't completely accurate, or I'm seeing it.
Yeah, and in religious circles, we call a lot of people who lose their faith, but they call it deconstruction. But I think my deconstruction started in maybe the fall of 2019, and it was a deconstruction of my anti-man worldview.
Yeah.
Or even, I guess I'll just call it feminism. It was my feminist worldview.
Okay. But it took some time. And it took some more real conversations where you still were feeling a lot of hurt and unsure how you could possibly move forward.
Yeah,
with your faith intact. I just remember one night in particular after we got to a church thing, and you were really hurt.
I think that was before.
Was that before?
Was before.
Man.
Yeah, that was like literally days before. That was like the pinnacle.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't make sense to me anymore. I don't know. And you really felt for me. You were right there with me. And because I had kind of convinced you of my worldview, which wasn't hard to do because it is everything.
This is a thing. I think a lot of men also agree with this idea that men are not great.
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah, and there's a lot of repair that needs to happen for men. And so we're like, yeah, I'm with you.
I don't want to be that kind of man.
I also don't know how to really move forward very well with this. But
so this is a big subject to unpack, but I do want to talk about it, and maybe we can talk more openly even on future podcasts about it. But
and the reason that we want to talk about it is because this does erode relationships when it comes down to it. And it erodes families when this sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, this worldview, this way of seeing gender moves in. It really does put husbands and wife at odds with each other at some point, and then families fall apart. So
we've really watched it happen to others where very legitimately hurt. It would be like if you heard that your friend or somebody you knew was doing horrible things behind your back to you. It legitimately hurts, and you're not wrong to be upset.
Right.
And so you're going along and you're like, I don't understand why they're doing this. And I'm legitimately upset. And your husband is like, yes, I'm right there with you. That's terrible. This shouldn't be happening to you. So there are so many hundreds of millions of women who feel legitimately hurt because they have been convinced that the world has been painful for women forever, and that there's this toxic masculinity, there's this patriarchy,
inequity, and
that is getting in the way of their happiness and their success, that actually doesn't want them to succeed for some nefarious purpose. I think all of those women, for many of them at least, would say, but I have great men in my life. Right. But there's this person, outside of it. Like, somewhere. Yeah. But I think what happens is there will come a point where it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And as supportive as we've seen a lot of husbands try to be, it erodes it too much. And there comes a point where even a supportive husband, it can't go on. No. And the marriage ends. Right. We've seen that happen
multiple times with people that we know or somehow acquainted
and
with.
Like directly linked to these ideas. Yep. It's a legitimate hurt, but it's based on a lie. And so I guess then I started to deconstruct, and all of these beautiful things happened that helped me with my deconstruction. And so but I can't say it's like, A, do this, B, do this, C, do this. I just had things that kept happening. And it was almost like I had awoken. I found out that the friend that had supposedly been bad talking me, right, in my example, was not bad talking me, that was a manipulation and a lie.
By someone else.
Yeah. But now there's some repair to do because maybe I've built so many stories around that lie. But I was awoken to the fact that I didn't think it was maybe true. The feminist worldview. Okay. We really didn't want to use feminist because there's a lot of complexity there. Like when we say I'm not a fan of feminism, people will say, well, I guess you aren't a fan of women being able to get their own bank accounts. Right. And I'm like, well, I think women are smart. I think we could have figured out how to say, hey, I think we should be able to get a bank account without our husband, and it would have all worked. But I also have all sorts of changed beliefs on how we got to a place where women weren't having bank accounts or couldn't get a credit card without their husband's signature. I think a lot of the times is because most women's husbands were the sole breadwinner. So as a bank, they're like, well, you don't work, so I'm uncomfortable giving you a credit card if you don't have income, but your husband does, so he's going to need to sign off on it. Right. That's a whole nother conversation we could talk about and came along the way on this journey. So I hesitate because I don't want to mingle that with, suffrage and all sorts of things, but I'm going to.
That's all right.
So I started to deconstruct that, and one of the exercises that I eventually came to was I used to see, like I said, men as very flat and very much motivated by one thing, and that was women's bodies, relations with women. I'm saying it kind of awkwardly because I know a lot of you are moms and are listening maybe in the car or, something along those lines. And so I don't want to
just wink at the camera.
Yeah, they know what you're those sorts of things. That's all they were interested in. And also that they exerted a lot of power and dominance over women. There was recently a famous survey that came out where they're asking women if they would rather be alone with a grizzly bear or a stranger.
Or stranger man.
And like 80% of women chose the grizzly bear, and dudes are like, hey, why? Grizzly bears will tear you to shreds.
Yeah, it's almost for sure they will.
And I think I saw a podcast where they were discussing that.
Too many Disney movies making bears look friendly and nice.
Yeah, that's true.
A problem.
I think there was a podcast I was watching. They were talking to women about that in particular, and they were saying like, how many men do you think are bad and would like take advantage of a woman if they had her alone? And they were saying something like 90%. And it's like, oh my goodness, men were super offended.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but like, I do think that's not fair to men, but I also think we need to admit that these women are getting there because they're being told that that's the way it is. Right. Through our stories, through our music, through the news, through the books that we're reading. The historical fiction is creating all sorts of ideas about how it is among, all women all the time throughout history.
Go back to our story podcast we did.
Yeah, stories are a big deal. And so that's how they got themselves there,
right.
Instead of it being like at the highest, maybe 3% of, so 3 of 100 men would hurt you. That means 97% of men would not hurt you. I'm there with them. I know that in my brain in the past I thought like, well, they would if they could. They want to, they just won't because they'll get in trouble or something, you know. And so I was reading everything that when I was all my interactions with men through that lens. Okay, so like I said, it started in about 2019 for me, this deconstruction. And then interestingly, in 2020, we all got, in lockdown.
Yeah.
And
big year.
The place we were living had woods behind it, and we just like decided to make a little trail into it and make a teepee and like have a little place that we could all hang out in the woods, mostly just for something to do.
Yeah.
Remember, like
sure.
nobody
we
had
all
anything
bored.
to do. You couldn't go anywhere. We had 11 people with nowhere to go. And so it was really fun.
That's
I mean,
true.
I remember we were like digging out things with our hands because we actually didn't want it to go quicker. It was just like, we just want something to do.
Yeah.
To fill our days. And simultaneously with that, we're getting all into like rural life ideas, like playing Little House on the Prairie sort of thing. And we started watching, I don't even know how we came upon it, but we started watching Victorian Farm.
Right.
I'm mentioning a TV show because it was a big deal. We just, as a whole family, we started watching Victorian Farm, which is a reality show in England. They have a bunch of, I think it was the first, but they have a bunch of them now where they did Tudor Farm and Edwardian Farm, and they did something called like Life at the Castle, which is sort of the same idea. They bring in 3 historians who for a year live life like
That era. Yeah.
And it's not like American reality shows where we're like trying to see how their lives fall apart. I don't think they're there the whole year.
No, it's not like all this drama.
I think they go home some of the time, and they're historians. Ruth Goodman is one of them, and I adore Ruth Goodman now. But they're kind of showing how families created a life during Victorian times, and it was a time of a lot of change and turmoil. So it was fascinating. But one of the things I started to notice, and it was interesting because I then had it play out in my life. We're watching Victorian Farm, and there was things that had to be done on the farm, and they were things that only men's bodies were strong enough to do.
Right.
Like building the pig pen, because he's got to like lift these heavy stones and fell these logs. Literally, I cannot do that.
Right.
And I know that we've gotten into weird places in some parts of the internet where we think that women can. We can't. We don't have that body. And in case I didn't know that lesson, we watched this show, and hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. So he's doing those things, but they don't have time to just like sit around and read novels. They will die if everything on the farm doesn't get done. So women on the farm have to pick up the rest.
Sure.
Like he does everything he can. She's got to pick up the rest. And you know what she can do? She can milk a cow.
Right.
She can make the cheese. She can grow the garden, but she can also scrub the floors. And like Ruth, we walks you through why you had to scrub the floors every day.
Yeah.
Because like you would get sick. And Victorians started to realize that they needed to keep everything clean to keep children alive.
Sure. Yeah.
And so she's sweeping, she's scrubbing floors, she's making food because they need to eat, and she's doing that every day. And she's cleaning the laundry because you have to clean your clothing. Dad's not doing the laundry because Dad is out there mending fences, going and herding the animals, cutting down, doing all of this stuff. And they're both, at the end of the day, they have spent up their life in the farm labor. But I said, that's interesting. Those are very gendered roles. And I always thought, I was literally taught that like the roles of homemaking, here we are at this podcast now.
Yep.
This podcast wouldn't exist without this journey. The roles of homemaking were arbitrarily assigned as a way to keep women down. I like really thought that.
Yeah.
And also that our jobs were demeaning. And just woman, get back in the kitchen, like that's if any boys joked with me about that, I was a teenager, I was mad.
Yeah, well,
like not funny. I started to see like, well, of course that's what she does because she can, and we have to live. The family needs to live.
We have to live.
Live.
We need that on a t-shirt.
Mama, we gotta live. Can you do the laundry? And so I'm like, that's fascinating. It's not demeaning. That's just what she can offer.
Yeah.
Now, as we're watching Victorian Farm, we moved into a fixer-upper.
Righto.
And then I got to play out
fun.
That very scenario. We could only move as quickly as you and the boys could get some things done. There was plenty of things I could do around the fixer-upper, but there was one time in particular where we were waiting. We couldn't move forward till we got a new beam installed.
Yep.
So that we could take out some walls.
A wall.
Some
Yeah.
load-bearing wall.
Yeah.
But we couldn't lift it.
Yeah.
I could not lift the beam.
You can lift your end.
I couldn't lift my end of the beam. We needed to wait until our teenage sons could be there to help us lift the beam.
Thank goodness for teenage sons,
Oh
everybody.
gosh, we couldn't have ever done that.
If you don't have one, you should get one because they're
But
really helpful.
simultaneously, I'm doing all these things and I'm trying to keep up with you because, like I said, I was a little bit of a tomboy still. I can do whatever you could do, sort of competitive nature. But I was in so much pain that summer. Do you remember?
Yeah, you
Oh
suffered.
my gosh, I was in so much pain. Every night I was like sleeping with like a, do you remember this?
Yeah, you had like a little
I had a
glove
brace
thing.
that had like a blow up thing to keep my hand like this. And I'm like, I have so much carpal tunnel, but it was from hammering, ripping things out, all of these things. I started to find that I'm like, once again, I just can't do it. And I was like frustrated because I wanted to be an equal partner in the renovation. So what I remember one day in particular, it might have been the day you were installing the beam. I don't know. You were doing something that I couldn't do. And I'm like, well, this floor needs sweeping. And I'm like, here I am, domestic labor. I'm doing the gender role. I'm sweeping the floor because I can. All hands on deck. Everybody's got to do stuff. And these boys can swing these sledgehammers and knock down these walls and wheelbarrows
Take
and
out
lifting
concrete
and
with it.
Yes, and what can I do? And suddenly I can sweep floors, I can wipe things down, I can clean things up, and I can cook you dinner. All you and the boys were using your bodies for our family. You were becoming like beasts of burden for our family. And I'm like, the least I could do is that as soon as they're done, I can refuel those bodies with hearty, delicious meals to show my gratitude for the year. And also, I was so amazed with the male body through that time. Just amazed.
We need to clip that and just post that as if it's its own little thing. I like that statement.
You guys could just hammer and hammer and hammer and hammer, and we're fine. I took that sledgehammer to like hit some brick wall that we needed to knock down, and I did one hit, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
It bounced back and
Yeah, like and I did this.
it like rattles through your body.
We had
it's like one of those cartoons where like he goes.
No, that's exactly what it was like. And then we had is that called what is this called?
Oh, a jackhammer.
We had a jackhammer, and I'm like, let me try. This will be fun. I'm like, it was like, oh.
We have that on video,
I was
actually.
like, no, I can't do it. And certainly I could have gotten stronger, and my body would have probably eventually responded once it was done being injured. But I started to see once again the traditional gender roles emerge because this is what I realized. I really believe that one of the reasons that we can believe that there is no difference in the genders is because we are so far removed from that sort of life.
Right. The more physical labor.
Yes, because so many of us now, our experience is sitting at desk in school and then sitting in desk at work. It's a very cerebral, computer screen sort of existence. And so you can be convinced that there's no difference in the genders. There was absolutely no way you could have convinced people on the farm that there was no difference in the genders.
Right.
I mean, let alone with the animals that they're dealing with. But
Sure.
They know we don't have the same body. We cannot do the same things. And so that was interesting. I started to deconstruct my feelings about traditional gender roles in the home because of that. And also what joy could come in serving them as they served me. Then another big change came when I was listening to a debate between a very thoughtful feminist, intelligent, thoughtful feminist, and I don't even know who this guy is, but he debates a lot of people. And he got in a debate with her, and they talked about essentially every building you've ever lived in or worked in was built by men. Every road you drove on was built by men. Most of the things, the technology you use was invented by and built by men. And he started to list off, he said all of like your electricity, all of your utilities are built by and maintained by men. All of your food and goods are transported in large part by men. I had never thought about that. I had never thought about how the world is maintained on the backs of men and run and maintained on the backs of men. We're always talking, when we're talking about men and women and where our hurt lies, we're talking about she couldn't get into this college that men could get into, or she couldn't get this job, or she couldn't get this bank account. We're never talking about the extreme physical labor that millions of men are doing every day just to keep the world running.
Right.
And I had never thought about that before. And it's kind of like this weird, you had all this evidence to the contrary of your worldview, or I did, but I didn't even see it. It was like invisible to me.
Sure.
And then suddenly you're like, why didn't I ever consider that data?
Yeah.
Why didn't I ever consider that data when I'm thinking about what men are? I just see men as like good for nothing that are going to spend
ne'er-do-wells, like they're
Yes.
just sort of,
and like little shifty-eyed and like be careful. And why didn't I ever consider? And then this is the sad thing. After that, I listened to that conversation with him. I started to drive around, you know, as I'm driving around doing the things I'm doing, and I'm noticing all of the men who are just working around on the roads, you know, on the construction of the roads, who are fixing things, you know, somebody who's coming to fix our plumbing, men who are sewing
sewing
no,
seeds?
No, men who are
farmers?
Mowing,
okay.
Mowing the lawns in our neighborhood, who are spreading
the pine
needles and like these uncomfortable jobs. And like, even as they're mowing, I start to like suddenly see them, which I think is so terrible, that all of those years of me being so focused on self and the hurt that I feel because of men, I never even looked at those men. They were invisible to me, that's really terrible. These men, which are so willing to show up every day and do these jobs that are very, very taxing. I mean, because I'm seeing these men, they're sweaty, they're dirty, they're doing difficult things where, like, you know, there's like water spraying out of pipes and they're all there like trying to work on it. And
dirty jobs.
And it's like I didn't even see them, which I just think is terrible. It's like this, you know, the rabble around me, like I'm some sort of queen. You don't count in my data of how this world works against women. But keep going. I want my grass to look nice. Suddenly, I started to notice them, and I started to feel grateful for them.
Yeah.
And like I started to realize that all of these things that are so amazing in my life, you know, your air conditioning goes out, and a man shows up, and he fixes it.
Right.
And because he's put the time in to learn it, and he does that. And there's like a million things like that.
Yeah.
And I started to feel, I had this realization that, oh my goodness, the world would fall apart without men. Which maybe that, for some of you, are like, well, of course. But it wasn't of course for me. Like, it was like this gratitude resting upon me and like awe.
Right.
And awe. Because the men I'm seeing do that aren't doing it like, yeah, I'm so tired, I have to do this. They looked happy.
Right.
They looked happy that they were getting these jobs done and that they were doing them well. They're laughing. They're, you know, concentrated. They're doing these things happily and willingly. And I suddenly felt just awe. And I think that scene in Barbie, I haven't seen the Barbie movie, but we've all seen that scene where Ryan Gosling, who's playing Ken, like walks up and he like starts to see men.
Yeah, I don't know what the context is for this.
I know,
like,
I understand a little bit that like
scene.
in Barbie's world, like Ken, all he gets to do is like play. He's just to look good.
Right. He's arm candy for
Yeah,
Barbie.
and then he comes to our world, and I think it was supposed to be negative, but he starts to see like men and how powerful they are and all the great things that they've done, and he's like super inspired.
Right.
Well, I was having that experience.
Right.
I'm like, suddenly, when I used to see men as like only interested in one thing and always like getting in the way of women, I saw them holding together the house that we live in, you know, figuratively. They are keeping our world running, and they're happy to do it. And it was like a new awe that rested upon me. And I still do it to this day. This was, I don't know, 3 years ago that I kind of came to that, and maybe longer. But I still do it as a practice, as something that I think is an important thing to do. Is I notice men wherever I am. Start to do it. Start to look around when you're at the gas station, like somebody who's like filling up the gas at the pumps, you know, with the truck. It's probably a man.
Oh, right. Actually filling the big tanks.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Everywhere you go, like there's some floor that's broken at the grocery store. There's probably a man who's fixing it. This is not dogging on women. We're not going back to counting genders and deciding who's better. In noticing that they're doing it and then mentally being grateful. Grateful that this man is willing to do this and that he's showing up to fix it so that my neighborhood is beautiful and well maintained. Or my phone lines are working. I never felt it more powerfully. Like, I actually was super moved when a few months ago we were going to have that huge ice storm come in.
Oh, right.
And
I
was at the grocery store. I was at Walmart, and I came out into the parking lot, and all of these linemen are piling in, like driving into the parking lot. They obviously had a staging area in the parking lot at Walmart. All of these linemen, and I can see their license plates. They've come from states away.
Right.
And they're so jazzed. They're so happy to be there and to show up and to save us all.
Yeah.
And I felt so much gratitude and love for these men. Oh my gosh, they were invisible, but we need these people, these men in particular, all over our country and all over the world to do these things, and they do them happily, and they do them, I think, hoping, and maybe we're going to pivot here, but I think most of these men are hoping that the women in their life will notice.
Right. Well, and this is where your shift also took place, is that you saw men as being something that a creature that was looking for one thing, and it was what he could essentially use a woman for.
Yes.
But the shift in that is that men are indeed woman-oriented.
Yeah, that's what I realized. They are woman-oriented.
In a different way than what you had seen or what you thought you were seeing before.
Yeah, so I think before when this was a shaping experience for me to view men negatively. When I was growing up, I grew up in a master plan community that had tons of construction going on because it was brand new.
Yeah.
So there's just like endless all the time, there are new streets being put in, a new development going in. And so there were so many men in construction all of the time. And I remember even as like a 12-year-old, when I would ride by those construction sites, a few men would stop and they would smile at me as I went by, and they would watch me go by. And I was like, ew, scary, like bad men. Maybe 3%. But what if they're just like literally nice dads who are just watching some...
I think it's fun. There's a kid riding
a bike, probably barefoot, messy looking, inner swimsuit.
Oh, definitely messy looking.
Yes, definitely messy looking, riding to the pool. And they're thinking, well, that's happy.
Yeah.
Just like I would be.
Sure, we love watching kids ride their bikes.
We love watching kids ride their bikes. I saw it as nefarious. And now I'm like, that was the incorrect assignment. Now I know you're like, but that's how I stay safe.
And that's how I keep my kids safe.
That's how I keep my kids safe. Here's the thing that I've changed about that. There's always a huge caveat. There are always bad men. Always. Because men are powerful physically. And bad men who want to hurt people will use their physical strength, often against women, because we are unmatched. We cannot stop them if they want to hurt us. But you know what is the greatest part of that? Is that most men would help us. Right. Most men would save us from bad men and seek to save us from bad men. Let's say a bad man does hurt you. You go to other men to help take him to jail.
Right.
To find that man and take him to jail.
Right, and there'll be more men who want to find them and do that than who would do that thing.
Yes, most men would seek to protect you. And I love watching videos of men jumping in to save people, protecting people, like grabbing people and pulling them out of the way of a bus, or just endless little, videos caught
the moments all men live for, by the way. Yes. Most men in the world, I should say.
So I do think it's important to be safe. But I also think we should feel such gratitude because it's mostly men keeping us safe. It's the good men keeping us safe.
Right.
And the problem with this worldview is where we believe men are bad is that we need good men. We need to celebrate masculinity. We need those men to keep us safe, because that was another thing that happened in that conversation with that feminist. He was like, so what, you actually cannot as a woman force the feminist ideology on the world, because you cannot conquer militarily with force and as women, unless you convince good men to do it for you. She wants to tear down the patriarchy, but she needs men to tear down the patriarchy for her.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, but that's still a patriarchy in my mind. Because they're still in charge. They've just let you kind of be in charge with them.
Sure. It's funny, even the evil villainesses in movies always have their henchmen who do all their stuff for them, right?
That's
I mean,
true.
it's a common thing.
And so, I'm not trying to minimize that there are bad men and that we should be safe from them. But what I'm trying to say is we need to celebrate good men and allow them to be men. Sure. And be grateful for them. There was that famous thing that happened with, I think his name's Daniel Perry. on that.
Whoops. Hold for silent. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
I
Daniel,
just fix it for you.
Daniel Perry on the subway.
Yes.
There was that woman being attacked,
Yeah.
and he like held the guy
Yeah.
down, who actually ended up dying.
Right.
And he almost went to prison for it.
Right.
And
yeah.
it's like, no.
He's
Celebrate him.
He's one of the good guys.
We cannot. We will not get rid of bad men by tearing down all men.
Right.
All we'll do is make the good men slump their shoulders and walk away.
Yeah. Because they're afraid to jump in because they don't want to
They
get in trouble.
don't want to. Or we have trained them their whole lives to eschew. Is that how you say that word? Eschew masculinity and power. They're even uncomfortable with becoming muscular. And it's like, no. I feel so different now. We need good men to get really strong. Because we can't end bad men. We can't.
Yeah.
But we could end their ability to afflict too much damage on us if we have enough good men keeping them at bay.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to go and inflict a bunch of violence with a gun,
Sure.
they don't go somewhere where there'll be men with guns. They go somewhere where it's likely that no one can stop them.
Sure.
And the same thing with Switzerland. They were never forced into World War I or World War II, and nobody invaded them because the population is all armed and trained with guns,
Right.
because everybody has to serve in the military. If we tear down masculinity and call it toxic, we are tearing down our protection against the truly bad men.
Well, and you're opening it up for the bad men to
Yes.
do what they like.
And then the crazier thing is the most important men in the world when it comes to protecting women are fathers. Husbands and fathers. If we weaken and trivialize the role of those men and make them uncomfortable with leading in that protective manner as protectors, then we are only weakening the last safeguard for women. We had a friend who got into an abusive marriage. It started out, it was like during when they were just together at the beginning, it wasn't as abusive, it was just like emotionally abusive, and she didn't recognize that because she was young. But like as soon as they got married, it turned physical as well. And it was only a few months before she was willing, because I think probably it happens, and then...
You don't want to admit or say
Yeah, and you're like,
anything about
that was kind of a wild thing, and I kind of pushed him to it or something, right? Because you've been manipulated for so long. But a few months into the marriage, she called, I think, her mom and said, this is happening, or this happened. And guess what? Dad got in the car immediately and drove down to where she was living, hours away, picked her up and brought her home.
Right.
And then said, don't come after her.
Yeah.
But we've heard other stories, and we know of other stories that are maybe too personal to share, where strong dads have discouraged negative boyfriends.
Right.
They're just not interested.
Just by their very presence.
Yeah. And I think historically, when we talk about the patriarchy, that was actually an incredibly powerful and benevolent patriarchy protecting women against bad men. It was like a very structured society where brothers and dad would protect mother and sister.
Right.
Now, obviously, I know that, some of you have had different experiences where you were married to bad men, but I hope that you were able to get out of those marriages and that there were good men in your lives who helped protect you against them.
Yeah. One thing that you touched on that was interesting is you talked about how you recognized that what the woman can do is appreciate what the man is doing and nurture those good things in that man, in his sort of nature to either protect or provide or do whatever that is. And I think that's that's a shift that you've made in your life, because it's interesting for me to watch Megan go through this, because that all kind of happened. And then she started looking at me. And so this didn't all just happen to men outside of her marriage.
Abstract.
It wasn't like Megan's walking around hugging all these guys that are, along the street, mowing the lawn. She does that a couple sometimes, but
If they're hot.
But her relationship with me changed in that she started to recognize when I was doing things that were, I don't want to say the word manly, but something that a man does. If I picked up something heavy or I fixed something or any number of things, and she would say, "Wow," she'd be like, "Whoa, that's heavy. I'm impressed." Or, "Oh, you fixed that. I mean, that's." She would like appreciate it, and I was like, "Wow, all right, well, I feel pretty good today." Like it actually made me feel really good and made me want to do more to help in that way and to be more play that role a little bit,
Like
in a little
lift more
more
heavy
confidence.
things, yeah.
And to be like, you know what, I can probably figure out how to fix that. Like I fixed that other thing. Megan liked it.
Right.
I'll bet you I can fix that too. And I was more willing.
Right.
So it gave me more confidence to jump in and do stuff where I might have been a little bit like hesitant before. So this is a beauty of you realizing this. And I think if this happens, other people do the same thing, is that the men are more anxious to actually just serve and help in the way that they know they can do it. And because really when it comes out, well, and the thing is, because we've said this before, but men are pretty simple by and large. We're kind of like a dog. It's like if you just appreciate us for doing something, we will do that thing for you like all day long. And it's true, and so by appreciating me and those things, I was that much more anxious to then jump in and do what I could. And also gave me more confidence just to do it. Because I had grown up with some of these same ideas. I mean, not that they were in my home, but they start to kind of bleed in through classes you're taking or whatever.
History classes.
Yeah, and you start to question your role as a man. And you start
uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, you start to be uncomfortable with some of your natural impulses, your natural good impulses, I should say. And you don't know how to move forward sometimes, or you lack the confidence to maybe move forward.
Yeah.
Where you think that this is probably where I should do something, but I don't know. But Megan gave me the confidence to be like, no, I'm going to do that because you appreciate it and I can. I don't know. It gave me more confidence.
Yeah, that's something that was one of the most touching and fascinating aspects of that is that I thought like, well, men are powerful. They know they're powerful. They will always be powerful. But I learned, one, that they're women oriented, not just in women's bodies. I think they really just want to please women, and they're so happy to please women. And so if I was at a store and a man would help me, before I might have been like, what? I'm married,
right.
Like, excuse me, but I would be kind of uncomfortable. Like, is he like trying to flirt with me? And I don't think that anymore. I think men are just so happy to help women. It makes you feel so good to help women and to be noticed by women.
Yeah, to be acknowledged.
Yeah, and I heard some scientists say, some like Nobel-winning scientists at Oxford say, in the end, I just did it for the girls. And I was like,
he wanted the women.
He just wanted the girls to notice him and think he was great. So I would have seen that as like, oh, men. But now I'm like, it's true. That would have been
cringe before.
And so this is the thing, that the next phase of that is realizing, as I show gratitude to Mike, and I'm almost like handing him his power. Like,
yeah, this is interesting. I think this is true because we've definitely seen women essentially take power
because he wants
from
to
men.
please her.
Yeah, so if he'll hand it over, she'll take it, and she'll essentially like take the wind out of his sails, kind of take that sort of life out of him. Mm-hmm. But
by just demeaning him and being critical of him and saying, you're like if you had a dog where all the time you're like, no, bad dog, that dog is so confused and sad. Yeah. And I don't want to oversimplify men, but I do think
it's okay.
so
We're
often.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, I do think so often they wither away under that sort of treatment. And the opposite is also true, that like a woman can like literally hand the power and the life over to her man, and then he will, one of the visuals I think for that is the Lady of the Lake with King Arthur. She like hands him the sword out of the lake.
Right.
The sword now that is magical and mystical and protects the kingdom.
Sure. And
like I think that women don't realize that men are kind of waiting for us to hand them that sword, but when we do and we encourage them in their masculinity, we encourage them to use their masculinity well, they'll do anything. We expect that when Arthur takes that sword, he will fight to the death to protect the kingdom.
Right.
He will slay dragons with that, and he will jump in the front of women and children who are being attacked with that sword. And we expect that out of men, but when we give them permission to be a man and not a woman, to use their masculinity in virtuous and strong and courageous ways, they will take that sword and they will use it with such goodness. Not everyone, and I hate to have to keep doing those caveats, but I think most men respond so much to that sort of trust from the woman in their life.
Yeah.
And I think I did the same thing to you that I mentioned, where those things were just invisible to me, all the things men were doing. So many things that you were doing were invisible to me. Instead, I think I spent a lot of years thinking, and I had been totally taught to think this way from magazines, like reading all these magazines before I got married, and like men and women's relationships, just trash, saying like you got to help him get in touch with his feminine side, and like he needs to be more emotional, and you have to learn.
He's like a beast to be like tamed and reformed.
And while that is true, so am I.
Right. Okay.
Like, right? Like, we don't ever talk about that. We joke about as a family, if Beauty and the Beast were flipped and this guy were like imprisoned by this disgusting, ugly woman beast, he's horrified by her, but then like, actually, I do love you, even though you're ugly. And then he kisses her and then she's hot.
Yeah.
Like, what a disturbing story that is. We're like, well, that's terrible. He should have, what? Why doesn't she have to become hot at the end,
Oh, like that makes her like suddenly a value?
Yeah, like suddenly the curse is gone and she's hot now. So it all worked out. He didn't have to love an ugly beast. There's so many things like that. But I think I was doing that to you where I wasn't noticing all of the things that you were doing for us. I was just noticing where you weren't like me or my girlfriends and weren't meeting my needs in that way. But as soon as I started to say, wait, he's not a woman. He's a man and I like men. I want him to be a man.
Right.
Then I was no longer angry at you for being one.
Sure.
So often I'll hear women complain about like, my husband doesn't listen. Well, I think, yes, everybody needs to learn to listen better and be more sensitive to their spouse. But also men are not oriented towards emotions in the same way that a woman is. And one of the ways I noticed that is we traveled for 2 years straight. And Mike was amazing at driving. And like not getting lost, knowing, you knew when we were supposed to stop and get gas. We never got in a bind because of you.
It's pretty simple. Just look at the little like gauge down there. It tells you,
Yeah, well.
I know that you.
But simultaneously, it did not matter. The kids never talked to you. And if they did, you didn't even hear them. Or if I'm talking to you too much, you're pulling this big RV, you're trying to like listen to the sounds of it and get it on the road and do all these things and like simultaneously. And if I'm just like, so anyways, what do you think about our future? And like, like if I were a cat, would you still love me? That sort of thing. Would you still, if I turned into a cat, would you stay married to me? And you're not listening. And like sometimes they're very valid things, but I had to be like, wait a second, how can he possibly listen? I don't want him to be like me because when I'm driving the car and the kids are talking to me, we're like missing every turn, rerouting all the time with the GPS. And like, that's not because I'm stupid or a bad driver. It's because I'm very emotion oriented. I'm very relationship oriented. And so if the kids are talking to me, I'm listening.
Sure.
And suddenly I'm not a very good driver. Mike's not listening, but we're so grateful that he's such a good driver. And I am oversimplifying this because like some of you out there are like, my husband's a terrible driver. It's like, well, I mean, yes, there are lots of things that make up men and women. And but I do believe we're different. And I think as we celebrate what you are that I will never be, I might be kind of good at those things, but I say, you know what? You're really good at it. So I want you to do that. And I'm going to celebrate it and I'm going to be grateful for it. And I want to now know how I can show you that appreciation and what makes men so women oriented? What are we? What do you celebrate? What do you look forward to in having a woman? And that was the next phase of learning to love men, was realizing what men love about women. Definitely a part of that was when you guys would work really hard at the house during the renovation, and then you would come back to the rental where we were living, and I would have dinner ready.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be like kale and chickpea curry. It would be like meat and potatoes and like homemade bread.
Yeah.
And you guys would be like, oh, like just
pretty happy about that.
So happy. What a nourishing meal was there waiting for you. And you just eat and eat and eat and eat, and put back all those calories that you just expended on working for us.
Yeah.
And I started to see that as a kind of a microcosm of men and women in general, that I can nurture you. I can hand you that sword with which you will protect our family and the world. I can also have a pillow for your head to rest on when you get home. You can come home to a home where this woman is so grateful for you and how you went out into the world and you slew dragons for her. And she notices, men aren't usually slaying dragons anymore. Some of them are doing those blue collar jobs, which I celebrate. But some are just going to an office and it's hard. And I don't hear a lot of women talking about how grateful they are that their husband goes for so many hours driving down there or riding the bus or the train. And then all day long, he's doing these things that aren't that interesting that he's been doing for 20 years, 25 years. And he's got all these people around him who sometimes make him feel dumb, or
Sure.
he's not measuring up, or he's getting passed over for the promotion. Like, these are very difficult things that are really hard on them, but they don't complain about it. So I think a lot of the times they do it. They're willing to. How often you talk to men who hate their jobs?
Yeah.
Most men do not enjoy their jobs.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, at least the men I interact with.
But they're like,
or they're like, they just sort of ended up in it. Like, yeah, this is what I do, I guess, you know?
Not very excited. I don't think when I was 18, I
Not a
would have been
whole lot of
excited.
romance there.
Yeah, but they're willing to do it. And the greatest gift to them would be coming home to a wife that appreciates that sacrifice,
Right.
that appreciates and says, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so grateful that you go for all of those hours every day, do these things that you don't necessarily love, but are willing to do. I, at the very least, can have a warm, inviting, happy home for you at the end of the day. And what I found was, those things had been described to me, you know, like with horror. There's like the 1950s homemaking videos. Your husband's supposed to get home and you're supposed to put on a clean apron and fix your hair and look nice, maybe put more lipstick on, and then be waiting for him and then get him his slippers. I saw those as so hurtful and so demeaning. But when you start to treasure your husband and see all of the work and sacrifice he's willing to do, all the dragons he's willing to slay for you, then you realize those are really great tips for how you can show your appreciation to him and just be there waiting to say, welcome home, Mr. What's his name?
Oh,
Mr. Bailey.
Yeah.
Welcome home, Mr. Bailey. That's that great scene
Life.
in It's a Wonderful Life where he's been working with the bank failure all day long, and then he comes in and she says, welcome home, Mr. Bailey. What a gift you can give to that man who's protecting you and slaying dragons for you and who adores you, who like would give his life for you, and you, all of the world would expect him to do so.
Right.
And so I started to realize, well, what do I do? He's willing to give his life for me. He's using his body to build and protect and, you know, work and earn and all of those things. What can I do for him or on the farm? And I absolutely can sweep. I can make dinner. I can, you know, do things along those lines, laundry and all of those things. But most of all, I think you just want to be appreciated.
Yeah, I think most men, that's high on the list of what they want, even if they don't realize it. But if they get that, they're like, oh man, it just feels so good.
And it's your greatest treasure to have a woman who adores you.
Yeah, you want a woman who like sees you and appreciates you.
Yeah, and that's another thing I
interesting.
started to realize when I was looking around and trying to noticing men. I would see these men out with their women. And, you know, in your brain, or you figure that men just want like hotties. But if you actually start to look around and collect data, like from the real world, you see a lot of men like holding on tenderly to their very normal looking women, very normal looking women. And they're with them, they're showing up for them, they've got their arms around them, you know, they're out like antiquing with their woman. They adore these women. I just started to say, like, I don't think this is what I've been explained, that they're only interested in one thing, and if you don't stay hot for them, they won't stick around. And like, I'm not seeing that. And so I started to want to be a gift back to you and give you what you are not, what you desire so much from a woman. And it's someone who appreciates you, someone who's proud of you, someone who
has
recognizes
confidence in you.
Yes, and hands over the reins to you.
Yeah.
That was something there was always a little tension there, because I am like, I think I could do that too.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not the question. He will come alive if I will just show the trust in handing it over to him. It's not the question of whether I'm capable of doing it. It's whether or not I can give him a job and say, I trust that you'll figure it out. I'm not going to question it. And so like, I will catch myself all the time. I think you know this. When we're driving and I'll be like, wait, shouldn't we have gotten off there? And then I'm like, you know what? Forget about it. I'm sure you know where you're going, because I don't know where we're going. So I'll be like, why are we stopping here? And I don't do that as much anymore. I don't question your decisions as much anymore. And then I'm like, why would I want to do everything? Why wouldn't I want to give him jobs that just say like, you figure it out and I will just be happy to show up for it.
Yeah.
And so then conversely, things that used to be painful, like I said, waiting at the door, but also I hear women complain about how they have to do everything on the holidays. It's like, well, you're married to a man. If you said, what should we do for Thanksgiving? Your husband said like, I don't know.
Have turkey?
Or just like, I don't care if we do anything.
Right.
But because I'm a woman and relationships are important to me and the strength of the home and family are important to me, those are the days where I'm going to work harder than my husband. Those are the days where I'm going to have to show up more than my husband, because that's the job I provide. I provide tradition. I provide beauty. I provide celebrations like this. And I can ask him for his help, but to be frustrated that you provide something that he doesn't provide doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
We both provide things. And
We all have our own things.
yeah, and just this. So all of these things have just changed my life so completely. I share this because this reorientation, this deconstruction of that worldview into this one, which would have freaked me out. And if I bring it up with some women, they think, or, my sons have brought it up with like women in their lives, like friends, not like girlfriends, and said like, they'll bring these ideas up about like how we're different and how we complement each other and all of these things. And they're like, well, where have you even heard this? Like, well, my mom feels this way. And they're like, oh,
She's one of those.
she's one of those.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, first of all, women, if a woman disagrees with you, it doesn't mean she's less than you and you're smarter than her, okay? That like suddenly I'm dumb because I don't agree with you. Yeah. But second of all, I do hesitate to share these things because I know as soon as I do, they're going to be like, oh, I didn't realize that you are brainwashed.
I didn't know I was better than you.
Yeah. But at the same time, you would think that working hard and pushing for all of these ideas, that I described before, these feminist ideas, would make you happier. Then you say, like, what if you actually rest into these traditional gender roles and see how protective and happy they've been for society, including women? What if you get over there and realize that as you give the gift of being that feminine, relationship-oriented, nurturing, gentle voice, what if you're actually happier too? It makes your husband happier, it makes your kids happier. But the wild thing is, it's made me happier. It fills me in ways that looking for healing from oppression never did.
Right. No, that's a black hole.
It's never ending.
Never enough.
And now I provide, instead of looking for healing, I provide healing. I provide relief, and I'm filled in the process. And I have watched you grow, like literally, you go to like the gym now, you're like all strong. But, and I've watched our sons grow, and I've watched our daughters grow and find more rest in themselves, rather than the whole world being oriented as oppressor versus oppressed. The history of the world has changed for me. I honor all of the men and women who came before us who were diligently trying to do their best in those responsibilities, because I'm not perfect at it, and neither are you.
No, definitely not.
But we have a framework, and we understand how it works and why it matters, and what, if we do it well, can provide. And so we show up. And it fills us, and it makes us happy. Yeah. So.
Well, and it has made me appreciate what you, I guess, would call the feminine arts. By watching you embrace that, and also recognizing how you're so much better at it than I could ever be. Because there was a time where I was making dinner,
every once in a while,
for us, and realizing how sad that really was. Because I'm just not. I know there are men who can cook, and they're great
chefs,
at it.
Yeah.
However, Megan just brings something I don't bring. And I have learned to recognize that and appreciate it more than I did before, because I think there was a little bit of the struggle there. And I think what happened was neither one of us was appreciating the other one fully for what they were doing. And I think that's a huge part of why our relationship has improved from that change, is that we both see each other and we're like, wow, you are really good at that, which means it's awesome. I don't need to worry about that, because I don't jump in either when you're in your realm. I'm like, Megan knows what she's doing. I'm not going to say, well, why are you cutting the onion like that? Which I think I used to kind of do. And so we're both more comfortable where we're at, and we're also both more appreciative of where the other one is. And it just brings us together. And you said it before. It also, we kind of see each other as two separate entities.
Way more than we ever did before.
Right. And we say like, wow, you're good at something I can never be good at. And you appreciate what I'm good at. But it kind of draws us together in a different kind of way.
Oh, yeah. I think I feel like a much more powerful attraction to you. Because suddenly you're not me.
Right.
And I'm not you. We're not just like bad versions of the other.
Right.
And then I see how desperately I need what you are.
Right.
And the more we differentiate ourselves in our gender, the more attracted we become to each other.
Yeah.
The more magnetic the romance is with one another. That was the other thing that was crazy. And we kind of talked about this at the beginning. I don't think people realize that when we flatten it all out and we say it's just like oppressor versus oppressed and we're the exact same thing, but we've been held back. And then we all seek to be the same thing in feminism. We're all kind of seeking to be the same thing, to go to the same schools, to get the same jobs, to like, you know, glass ceilings, girl boss, all of that. We're leaving corporate life out of this. We're leaving income out of this. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the family and the home. When Mike becomes more masculine and I become more feminine, we become more magnetically attracted to each other.
That's true.
And it's like, I'm not naturally good at these things, but I'm going to pursue that as a gift to you and to my family and to myself. And as we're both pursuing becoming better versions of masculine and feminine, we just are naturally more appreciative of each other and more attracted to one another because you're becoming more of something I'm not.
Right, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so there's actually less tension.
Oh, way less tension.
There's less headbutting over, you know, name the, you know, subject line. And there's just appreciation and respect and, yeah, like you said, coming together as a husband and wife.
Which it didn't come natural to me. Like I said, it was a tomboy.
Yeah, yeah.
But then the final step of that is it made us both celebrate the magic and power of homemaking.
Sure, yeah.
When it used to just be like, gotta eat, so dinner's gotta be made, groceries gotta get bought, you know, or like, we need a couch to sit on. When suddenly I'm giving those things as a gift and they become better and better, you started, you stopped complaining about home decorating.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Because it used to be like, I don't know, we don't need any of this.
Yeah.
But you started saying stuff like, actually, I do really appreciate, it's really pretty in here.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice in here. It's nice to come home to this. Or, you know, and then the food gets better. All of those homemaking things, you would think, I mean, that was what I was always taught. Like, now it's demeaning that she's waiting with his slippers. But he's like, oh, you're so amazing. That was so nice of you to think about my slippers. Because they're telling us this fake story. It's like in cartoons and like movies that he's just like, give him all slippers. And like, he doesn't care about her and he ignores her.
Yeah.
But what if actually her bringing his slippers to him in his pipe, he's like, what a dream I'm married to. What a joy this woman is. What a gift she is to me. Look at what I have. And I heard a reel this morning. This guy said, nothing is more treasured by a man than having a woman who adores him and loves him. And he said, I guarantee you, if you had a boardroom full of CEOs and like presidents of Fortune 500 companies, and a man walks in there with a wife who adores him, he's like, they're all going to be jealous because it's rare. And what a gift it is to have two people who adore each other and who agree to say, I'm going to be this and you're going to be that. And we're going to build something beautiful because we trust one another in our roles.
Right.
And we trust God in the roles that he's assigned us. And that, I guess that really should be the final thing, is any negativity or discomfort I had when reading certain Bible verses in the past or certain topics at church about the family or marriage are gone. When I used to feel hurt, I now feel joy. I now feel protection. I feel like a loving God knew exactly what would be best for men and women, and not like best to keep women down. He said, you will flourish in this, you will love it, and when you seek to be gentle and kind and like a Proverbs 31 woman, you will be so happy. And you will be a blessing to everyone in your life, which will also make you so happy. And the reverse is true. So now I see a very benevolent God. I see the greatest protector and provider in the world in Jesus Christ, doing the most manly thing in the world and willing to lay down his life for the human family. That is the most masculine thing a man can do. And I'm sure... I am sure now that he was happy to do so. He was happy to provide that and to use himself to protect us all from all the pain that he could, and all the sin and all of the hurt and all of those things. And so it's changed everything for me. My faith in God is deeper. My faith in Mike is deeper. My love for Mike is greater. My appreciation and love for the men in our community is greater. And my love for myself and my role, I feel like a queen. I feel like a queen. I feel so richly blessed. And those things would have sounded crazy to me before. I don't know if they sounded crazy to you today. I don't know if we were able to explain it well enough for it to cut through all of the propaganda,
yeah.
all of the gaslighting that we've been told, that we'll be happier when we level the playing field, when we get rid of
break the glass ceiling,
all of these things, which are just saying when we no longer differentiate between the genders, and we no longer appreciate that we're not men and we're grateful for them. It's gaslighting, because it's the opposite is true. You're not finding happiness. Women are not getting happier. We're getting less happier and less. The world makes less sense to us. We're not forming families. A lot of the families that are being formed are not as healthy as they were. Children aren't being protected. There's just a lot of sadness because of it. And but on the other side, as you step into it, there's so much happiness and joy, so much clarity. The world makes sense again. The scriptures make sense again. Love and gender and everything makes sense again. And you can feel so much happier, so many burdens lifted in doing that.
That's great.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks for coming along. I hope that this helps. I hope that this clarifies. And I hope now that we can refer to these ideas again and again, because they have been so transformative for us.
Yeah. We have to make this required listing for anyone who wants to listen to our podcast, right?
I wish that I could go back to my 16-year-old self and change her worldview. I was yearning for love. I was yearning for adventure. And if I could just go back and tell her rearrange that for her, all of the turmoil that would have been gone and all of the weights that would lift in, the clarity it would have brought. But I don't know. Hopefully I can do it for you. And I know I've done it for my kids.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So thanks for coming along, guys. Till next time. Bye.
Bye. That was good.
Was it?
Yeah, it was really good.